WrestleMania's timing is perfect. I've been yelling and screaming and getting my message.
In the soft glow of dawn on a balmy Florida morning, the world awoke to news that sent shockwaves through the sports entertainment universe. Terry Hulk Hogan. Bolea had passed away. As the first rays of sun painted the sky above Tampa in hues of gold and rose, an unseen tension gripped the city. For millions who grew up chanting Hulkamania, this wasn't just the loss of an entertainer, it was the end of an era. Across social media, tearful tributes poured in, but on the ground few could have anticipated the scale and intimacy of Hogan's final farewell. What unfolded would rewrite expectations for how the WWE family says goodbye. The motorcade and procession, a river of red and yellow. Shortly after sunrise, a sleek black hearse emerged from the funeral home, its hood draped in a cascade of crimson and gold roses, the very colors Hogan wore into thousands of arenas. A miniature replica of the famed Winged Eagle WWF Championship belt rested on the windshield, a poignant nod to the man who once carried the company on his broad shoulders. Behind the hearse, a long line of limousines followed in solemn formation, each window revealing familiar faces lost in quiet reflection. As the procession inched along blocked-off streets, fans lining the sidewalks held homemade signs. "Thank you, Hulk. You lifted us all," and "Real American Forever." Some wept. Others clasped prayer beads, their hushed voices weaving a collective prayer into the morning air. Notable attendees, legends united in grief. Despite the controversies and behind-the-scenes rifts that had swirled around Hogan over the years, many of wrestling's biggest names converged to pay their respects. In the second limousine were Ric Flair, his once-declared brother-in-arms, and Triple H, whose voice would later crack as he read Vince McMahon's moving letter. John Cena, freshly flown in from a European film shoot, sat silent, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. Shane McMahon and Roman Reigns, each clad in tailored black suits, exchanged solemn nods. Even a handful of all-elite wrestling stars were spotted, underscoring the magnitude of Hogan's influence across promotional lines. For a brief moment, generational and corporate divides melted away under the weight of shared loss. The eerie stillness, a city, paused as the marathon of vehicles snaked toward the memorial chapel. Tampa itself seemed to hold its breath. Traffic lights blinked off, intersections were sealed by police, and local businesses dimmed their neon signs. The usual cacophony of city life gave way to an almost reverent hush, punctuated only by the soft hum of passing engines and the distant sniffle of mourners. Journalists struggled to capture the enormity of the moment. Here was a gathering so intimate it felt private, yet so public it echoed across continents. For many, witnessing this procession was akin to watching a myth come home to rest. Inside the chapel, an atmosphere of quiet power. The funeral service took place in a gated Clearwater Beach chapel, its high arched ceilings bathed in soft, golden light. At the front stood a massive portrait of Hogan in full red and yellow regalia, arms raised triumphantly. In front of it sat the iconic Winged Eagle title belt, framed on a pedestal. A single microphone and a row of reserved chairs completed the minimalist stage. There were no pyrotechnics, no roaring crowds, only hushed voices, the rustle of programs, and the occasional gasp as a loved one took their seat. This stripped-down setting felt more sacred than any pay-per-view set, emphasizing that, on this day, spectacle took a back seat to sincerity. Opening tributes, reading the letter from Vince McMahon. The service began with Triple H stepping forward, his normally confident voice crackling with emotion. Clutching a letter from WWE Chairman Emeritus Vince McMahon, he addressed the crowd. "Terry Bollea was the man who helped build our empire. When Hogan entered the ring, the world watched. When he left behind a legacy that can never be replaced." As Triple H paused to compose himself, the audience, packed with stars, family, and a handful of close friends, leaned forward. McMahon's words, read aloud by his longtime friend and former chief competitor, resonated like a final tag team victory, forging an unspoken bond between the living and the legend they'd come to honor. Personal eulogies, a daughter's loving remembrance. Next came Brooke Hogan, Hulk's eldest child, stepping to the podium with tears welling in her eyes. She spoke not as a superstar, but as a daughter. He was my superhero, not just in the ring, but at home. Even broken, he made us laugh. Even in pain, he made sure we were okay. I used to think he was invincible. Maybe in a way, he still is. Her words carved through the solemn air, prompting silent sobs in the front rows. Here was the private man behind the bandana, the father who traded body slams for bedtime stories, a reminder that the emotional stakes went far beyond championship gold. The honorary pallbearers, 6 stars and a surprise. When it was time to lower the casket, 6 WWE superstars stepped forward as honorary pallbearers. John Cena, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, The Undertaker, and Ric Flair. Each lifted the coffin shoulder high, their movements deliberate and reverent. Then in a moment both surprising and poignant, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's floral tribute, a massive arrangement shaped like a championship belt, was carried in by chapel staff and placed beside Hogan's casket. Though absent in person, The Rock's gesture spoke volumes. Respect needn't be publicized to be profound. A haunting voice from the past. Hogan's final words. Midway through the ceremony, the chapel speakers crackled to life with a pre-recorded clip of Hogan himself from a 2009 interview. "When I go, I just want people to remember the good, the laughs, the matches, the hope. That's all I ever wanted to give." The clip played against the backdrop of his portrait, his familiar baritone echoing through the hallowed space. Some guests closed their eyes. Others bowed their heads as if in prayer. In that moment, the Immortal One spoke one last time, reminding everyone that, at his core, he sought to inspire and uplift. Global vigil, fans united in silence. Outside the chapel, thousands of fans formed a silent vigil along the procession route. Some knelt in rows on the sidewalk. Others stood, heads bowed, clutching lawn chairs draped in red and yellow bandanas. At precisely noon, the crowd began humming "Real American" in unison, a hushed, reverberating chant that carried for blocks. Police officers and volunteers wept openly, overwhelmed by the display of unity. Photographers captured the moment, but the real spectacle lay in the collective heartbeat of the crowd, a testament to Hogan's unparalleled ability to forge connections across generations and continents. Behind the scenes, a WWE headquarters in mourning. Backstage at WWE headquarters, the mood had been funeral-like for days. Officials halted TV tapings and canceled meet-and-greet events, giving employees the day off to grieve. In hushed corners, young wrestlers who never shared the ring with Hogan fought tears, acknowledging that without his pioneering spirit, none of them might have had a career. Even long-retired producers and commentators arrived to offer condolences. For once, the business side of WWE yielded to raw emotion, reasserting that, beyond corporate logos and television deals, human bonds still held sway. The private candlelight vigil. Stories in the night. That evening, a select group of Hogan's closest friends gathered at a private Tampa estate for a candlelight vigil. No press was allowed. No cameras recorded their sorrow. Instead, 5 flickering candles illuminated a circle of chairs, each occupied by a wrestling figure who shared unvarnished memories. Kevin Nash read from a handwritten letter Hogan penned during his own recovery. "We are warriors, brother, but even warriors fall. Just make sure when you do, you rise louder than the crowd." Nash's voice trembled as he recounted surprise visits and whispered pep talks, painting a portrait of Hogan as mentor and comrade, someone whose kindness often played out behind the curtain rather than in public view. Global tributes, landmarks, and homages. Beyond the funeral and vigil, tributes sprang up worldwide. In New York City, the Empire State Building glowed red and yellow. In Los Angeles, fans lit candles outside the Staples Center, chanting Hogan's signature catchphrase. Tokyo's national television aired a special retrospective of his legendary 1993 clash with the Great Muta. In rural towns from Australia to Brazil, impromptu gatherings at local wrestling gyms paid homage, with coaches leading 10-to-1 chants in Hogan's honor. These disparate homages, unified by color and chorus, underscored the breadth of Hogan's impact, one that transcended borders and time zones. WWE tribute specials, Immortal and Beyond. Recognizing the collective need to commemorate Hogan's life, WWE announced a multi-night tribute event titled Immortal Forever. The series spanned Raw, SmackDown, and a dedicated pay-per-view special. Archival footage, never-before-seen backstage moments, and interviews with those closest to Hogan offered fans a deeper understanding of the man behind the myth. Highlights included his first WrestleMania appearance, backstage pranks, and candid reflections on the toll of fame. The specials aired to record viewership, demonstrating that even in death, Hogan continued to unite the wrestling community. Reflection. What you leave behind. Throughout the week, a single Hogan quote emerged as a rallying cry. Don't ever waste your time trying to live forever. Just make sure what you leave behind makes someone want to keep going. Fans and wrestlers alike shared the line across social platforms, often pairing it with personal anecdotes of how Hogan had inspired them. Whether through charitable acts, acts of mentorship, or sheer ring charisma that made underdogs believe in themselves, Hogan's legacy of encouragement became his final gift to the world. Epilogue. The Immortal's Resting Place. On the final afternoon of formal ceremonies, Hogan's casket was lowered into a private mausoleum just outside Clearwater Beach. A simple plaque read, Terry Hulk Hogan Bollea, 1953 to 2025, the Immortal One. No fireworks followed, just a moment of silence broken only by the gentle Florida breeze. As the last prayers were whispered and the final rose laid upon the stone, those in attendance lingered, reluctant to return to reality. For in that sacred moment, Hogan's presence felt as potent as ever. The true test of brotherhood. In the days that followed, debates flared over who attended, who did not, and what those choices said about the wrestling fraternity. Linda Hogan's earlier criticisms had forced an industry-wide reckoning, that genuine loyalty extends beyond sound bites and scripted alliances. As the wrestling world absorbed the reality of Hogan's passing, one lesson stood clear. True brotherhood isn't self-declared, it's proven in absence and in presence, in public gestures and private solidarity. And in that lesson, the Immortal One's final farewell spoke louder than any chant ever could.